On October 25th, we're coming back to Melbourne for our first physical MLOps event. Whether you are just starting in the MLOps journey, improving in that space, or whether you have thousands of models in production, this event is for you. The type of things we're going to cover is MLOps for scale, and that scale can be number of models or the number of people in the team, or the number of prediction and inferences that need to be made in an hour or a minute or a second. So how to create effective MLOps for all those scenarios. We're going to cover MLOps processes and team structures. How do we organize ourselves and the talent that we have in our organizations for better results in MLOps? We're going to be looking at creating efficient and effective MLOps pipelines in an end-to-end. What does the data look like, the feature stores, all the way to the model deployment, serving, monitoring, alerting, etc. We're also going to cover getting a C-level buy-in and support for the investment in this area. We're going to be covering what governance and good management looks like in this space. So wherever you are in your journey, the MLOps event in Melbourne on October 25th is going to help you increase the maturity of MLOps in your organization. I hope you can join us. See you then.
I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading specialist data recruitment business. With offices in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, they're experts at providing recruitment strategy and building data teams for clients across industries Australia-wide. They provide recruitment solutions for all roles across the data lifecycle, including data engineering, data science, advanced analytics, customer and marketing insights, business intelligence, data product managers, and data governance. They're skilled at finding the best permanent and contract hires for your business needs, as well as statement of work, project-focused data resources. At Talent Insights, relationships matter most. I can say from first-hand experience, Talent Insights are fantastic to work with. Whether you're a business leader within an HR network or a specialist data candidate, Talent Insights should be the first company you turn to for all your data recruitment needs. Find them at talentinsights.com.au.
Hi, and welcome to Data Futurology. My name is Felipe Flores, and today we're talking about graph databases. Everything graph database related, all your questions answered. It's going to be an excellent episode. And we have Peter Kokinakos, or PK as he's known. He's the COO of MIP Australia. Pete, a pleasure having you on the show. How are you going today?
Hey, I'm wonderful, Felipe. Thanks for the opportunity to get together and discuss some great new tech that's emerging and coming out of the woodwork. So looking forward to our conversation today.
Oh, mate, same here, 100%. And I really like that you guys are always, at the forefront of these new technologies and bringing them to really real, practical applications across organizations. So I'm very keen to pick your brain on all things graph databases today. But I thought maybe we can start with getting you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, your remit, and about MIP, if that's all right.
All right, the 30-second ad, right? So we won't keep the viewer too long on this I think. But look, it is important to understand the pedigree of the company. I think MIP has been around for over 30 years. We are a pure data company. That's all we do. We do analytics and data. We've brought technologies into the country that people are very familiar with, I think, like Tableau, Ultrix, a product called Warescape, which has been around for a couple of decades now, doing some amazing things in the data warehousing automation space. We've done some work in the past with other techs, and we're always looking for something new. And today we're going to be talking about the graph technology. My remit as a COO is to basically make sure that we provide an end-to-end platform, not just in the technology, because we can actually do end-to-end with technology, but also from a services perspective and a support perspective, because it's no good, driving around town, flinging new software out the window as we drive to the next opportunity. We've got to make sure people get value from that investment. And that's what we do primarily. Is we have a full consulting service. We have a support desk that does frontline support for all the tech and all the customers that we have in Australia, as well as we do training and we do managed services. And of course, we can sell software as well as support it. So MIP is a full function service provider to the analytics community of Australia.
Amazing. Thank you so much, mate. That is excellent. And we were talking briefly before we started recording, and I was telling you how we've had so many questions from the audience around what is graph databases and kind of like what does that world look like? What are some potentials there? So we'll jump into that type of discussion. But the other area that we've been getting questions from is from people who have trialed it and then get stuck operationalizing or taking it into production. So I'd like to, throughout the conversation, come back to some of those themes. But maybe we can start with telling us about a graph and then graph databases and why it's important.
All right, so let's go to Graph 101. Just I think we call it an emerging technology. It's been around for the best part of almost 18 years. I think the theory's been around for a while, just like a lot of technology, right? Has been around for a while in theory, but now that the compute power is caught up and the way that we can actually structure architecture in the hardware and in the storage devices to be able to provide the speed and the capacity that we need, Graph is now coming to fruition in terms of bringing value to clients and not just being theoretical, actually being a real product. And we'll talk about specifically a product called Neo4j, which is the graph database that MIP is bringing to market with Neo in this country, and also some technology that sits on top of the database itself. So think of graph database, still a bucket. It's just like any other database. It's a bucket. It's the smarts around it that provide the applications and the usage and the use cases of how that works. So I think you're right. People are a little bit scared about it because it's not well understood. But think about it from a perspective of, let me draw an analogy from something that people may be familiar with, and this is the relational database. Mm-hmm. And, back in the 80s, it was new and weird, and it wasn't VSAM files, it wasn't index data structures. People think, oh, hang on, how does this work? It's all based on set theory, joins and unions and intersections. And they devised the SQL language for people to query it, so it kind of evolved over time. But all it did was mimic old school systems. So if you're as old as me, you remember going to a professional service like a doctor or a dentist. When you walk in, they ask your name and they go to the back of the office and they pull open the drawer and they have all the little cards in there. And pretty much all we did was take the card system and make it a database. So the patient card became a relation or a table in the database. Each visit became a record in a joined file, each prescription, another record in the file. So we just basically mimicked the old world of cards and drawers in a relational database. And we actually, and I'm going to use a bit of a profanity, but we made up bullshit data to connect this stuff, right? So we had the patient ID. I made up data, and I have an issue with fabricated data from a governance perspective, but we fabricate data to make the join between the patient record and all the repeating groups because we had a one-to-many and all those good things. So now, for me to do analysis on that patient ID is meaningless because it's fabricated. So there's no real value in that data. And so if you take that paradigm and you move to the graph world, you still have the entities like patient and services that you provide, but now you can actually describe the relationship. And the power in that means I can actually analyze based on the relationship, and that relationship is directional. And so now I've got a really different kind of way to start thinking about my data and the relationships that exist within my data, because that's the power of what we're looking for here is how do things connect and how they're related. And that's really what Graph does for us. A really cool example that you see a lot in the Neo4j world is films and person. And if you think about those two concepts, the relationship between the two, you can have a person who acts in a film, who directs a film, who produces a film, who is an extra in a film. So all of a sudden, it's not just this one-to-many or many-to-many that you're trying to kind of rationalize with a normal form, third normal form kind of structure. You actually can use that relationship to analyze and do further analysis. So then you can say, which actors didn't star in this film? So you can actually do the negative as well, which becomes pretty hard to do in straight SQL, right? So there's lots of things. So if you think about the graph world, we still have the concept of what we call nodes now instead of entities, but there's still the nouns, the things in the business. But now you've got verbs because you can say a person acted in a film, or a person directed the film, or a person funded the film. And all of a sudden you've got really, really intricate kind of an analytics that you can do for those relationships. Does that make sense?
100%. That is super exciting. And how do you recommend that people get get into using graph databases or get started in the space?
Well, look, there's lots of ways to do that. The first way is that you can download some free trial software. So the software is always a good place to start, especially for the technical viewers that we have today. Everyone wants to get their hands dirty because they want to feel what it's like and how it works. So it's easy to get a free download. You can go to the MIP website and you can request the download through our website and start playing around with it yourself. So if you're technically literate, you'll find it pretty easy to work with. One thing that you'll find is that the SQL concepts that Relational has are actually very condensed. So NEO has its own language called Cypher, and something that may take 18 pages of code in SQL might be 3 or 4 lines in Cypher, because it's an elegant language, because it's actually tuned for the graph to be able to traverse kind of trees and nodes and hook up relationships, even in circular patterns. Whereas you try and do that in SQL, any kind of recursive structures in SQL are hideously long and complicated, right? And then anything more than about 3 or 4 joins of significant tables will grind to a halt pretty quickly, right? Whereas graph is tuned for that kind of connection, jumping from node to node to work out how do I connect and where do I go next and all good things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what about the applications or use cases where should people look for when starting in the space?
Look, there's a bunch of use cases out there. One of the ones, let me give you a bit of an example of one that's really, really famous in the crime and the fraud detection world. There's a case called the Panama Papers, and there's about 2 or 3 documentaries now. There's one on Prime, one on Netflix. So if the folks out there want to chase up on that, it's really an interesting thing to watch, because number one, it's the way these guys perpetrated all the fraud in order to cleanse money, and it kind of looped in people all around the world. Everyone from the Icelandic prime minister was involved, who was channeling money through his wife's and children's accounts. You got to remember, like, these people are going out of their way to obfuscate the transaction to make it harder to find, and yet a bunch of journalists, the ICIJ, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, got together and they started using graph databases in order to make the connections. And so what they were looking for was certain patterns, and they broke up the data. So you got to think, journalists, some of them are technical, some of them not so much. And so they've given them the graph databases with all the tools in order to do their investigations and trying to find the links between all the nodes. And they weren't obvious. Like I said, these guys were trying to hide the links, and the journalists were trying to follow them. And so, in the real world, very few of our customers are going to be trying to hide their transactions. They're actually just transacting. And so it's a lot easier for us. So the Panama Papers was a really interesting example of finding the transactions, even though the values were different, the timing between transactions was different, the people seemed unrelated. By using graph technology, you can actually create a network of known people, and who knows who lives with who connects with who via telephone numbers. So lots of ways to connect that isn't a bullshit ID number, sorry to use a joke here, but a fabricated ID number. It's actually real world connections. And so they even kind of found some guy in Russia, the lead cellist of the symphony orchestra, who's apparently a friend of Putin's, had a $6 million US loan at one point that was written off 2 years later for $1. And so they find all this stuff as part of the transaction, but it was so hard, it was so buried in all this data and all this detail. And there was a whistleblower who was the original person must have been an employee in a law firm that was kind of dealing with all this, and said, hey, here's all this data. And it was literally terabytes and terabytes of documents, unstructured data. And they used, like I said, the graph database to really bring that all together and expose the whole thing. So I highly recommend watching. It's a great documentary on the Panama Papers. They're taking the next step now, and it's the Pandora Papers that they're now following, and it's kind of an extension to the Panama Papers. So really, really cool kind of way to see the technology in action. But not everyone's going to be looking for crime networks and that kind of stuff in their business. So my suggestion is download the product, get some data to ingest into the product. Again, think of the use case. And a couple of things that we recommend is if you're thinking about putting together a graph database application or a system in your premises, think about starting with something brand new. Don't try and get an old app that's kind of struggling or isn't really working for you, because sometimes there's too much baggage around that. There's too much view from senior leadership as well, saying we never got return on that, and that becomes a bit of a political hot potato. So you want to try and start with something fresh. Start with something, again, the old data science thing about making sure you can define the problem effectively. Is same concept applies here. Don't just try and throw some data in and hope to find some stuff. You got to have some kind of idea of what you're trying to get out of this. The other one that we see often is, and it's termed the frozen data lake. For a few years or decades now, we've been pouring data into either warehouses, marts, lakes. I've heard of lake house now. I don't know what that is yet, but there's all these new concepts coming out. So all this stuff that people are just pouring data in, and I think a lot of the data lakes are forming a very, very heavy, thick layer of ice on top of them. So the water gets in or the data gets in, but it's not coming out easily. And so this is a great opportunity to use Graph to kind of navigate through some of the stuff, because one of the advantages of Graph coming in a little bit later in the process in terms of the database technology structures, they've already solved the problem of scalability and size and all those good things, right? So that it's not something that's going to say, we can only deal with 1,000 rows. This thing deals with billions of rows and terabytes and petabytes of data. So you can get into the data lake and really try and break that ice cap and try to get some value from what's in there. And the third area is where you've got routines that are running in SQL that just aren't returning a result, or they're taking days or weeks or months to result in. See if the Graph can actually fine-tune that, because the speed of actually making the connections, and especially that recursive nature of SQL that some people are trying to do to try to get, the classic example of show me that every manager in the business and their 3 lines of reports below them. That's a really easy. Everyone wants to know that whether you're an HR or management. I want to see Mary and her reports are 3 lines down, nested in the hierarchy. Trying to do that SQL is hideous, and it could take a long time, especially if you've got 30, 40,000 employees in the business. In Graph, it's literally 5 lines of code, and it runs like a dream. So finding some of the stuff where the SQL is really sluggish, you could potentially find a great business case or a use case to then invest some more resources and some more time and effort into the whole Graph world.
Great recommendations, mate. Yeah, to have a new use case to look at some of the historical data that may not be accessible as wanted in the organization, and to be able to introduce the technology across the board in a seamless way. I think it's really good approaches. I also liked from what you were saying is that it seems like the technology can manage structure and unstructured data, and that it can track when all that data is linked, and then it can track over time. So I like having the time component in there as well. So it sounds super powerful.
Yeah, look, I think the one thing that we all kind of get bamboozled with a little bit is when we get to unstructured data, not all unstructured data is completely structureless. And so you can actually find some elements of structure. We did a piece of work with a client who said, look, all of my supplier information is way out of date. But I've got all my invoices. And so they're all PDF documents. Some were paper-based, so getting hard copy mail, which is a simple scan to PDF. And there's tools out there now, like we resell Alteryx, which is a great product. And they gave us 800 and said, you'll never get to the 800. See how many you can get through in the next couple of days. And within 2 hours, we had ingested the whole 800. And out of that, we kind of processed through with some clever algorithms inside Alteryx to identify, where there was a name and a colon, we could then identify the next string of characters is probably going to be the supplier name. So we could actually extract that. And we got through to about 730 something out, so close to 90% of the documents we could process. And that took us only literally a couple of days to try to get through that workload. So never ever assume that data is completely void of value simply because it's not in a table or on a system somewhere. There's always a way to get to data no matter where it lives. So, and like I say, something is like an invoice, which you kind of think is so different, so variable between different suppliers coming in, we can still make sense of that and put structure around it in order to analyze it. So never ever assume data is dead. You can punish it pretty hard to get some value out of it.
Yeah, well, this is very, very encouraging to hear, because I know that from my perspective, whenever in the past, whenever my teams have come up with applications that are around graph or network analysis, I always get nervous because they've traditionally been problems that have been harder or tough to crack, and it usually needs a lot of time, a lot of resources, and it seems to me like it's difficult. As a result of that, it's difficult to hit a home run with an application. So I've always been like we've usually tried it, but I've been always trying to constrain the scope at least, or time box the timelines, because I have an inherent nervousness around a network analysis or a social analysis, using, I guess, like more like current and old technology. But going into the graph world, like all this can change, especially if you're able to, get through so much, in this case, unstructured data so quickly. It sounds like a game changer.
I think it is, but I'll kind of support you, actually, even though the tech is allowing us to be more, quicker results.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be fast to fail is the whole concept, right? So if you're going to invest, weeks and weeks and then you fail, as opposed to, we're going to do 2 days and then fail, you learn from that, right? As long as you're learning from all that stuff. So I still think your processes are going to probably stay the same, and it's the same in any change management approach, because analytics is, in the old days, used to be like, hey, here's a nice chart and here's some pretty pictures. And it wasn't about action-based insights, because today we're giving insights, but we want to change behaviors. So when I flag someone in the CRM, the call center, I call in and I'm a pissed off customer. What happens with that? If I'm flagged as a potential churner from a lever of your business, I'm going to go somewhere else. What's the intervention strategy? What's the action that you're going to take? So I think you're still right in terms of trying to scope it down. But if you can get through more and you get and work out, yes, there is value here, or no, there's not, that condensed kind of time frame is really what you're looking for as a manager, right? And that's, your process will be the same. It's just going to be kind of, your time cycle is going to be condensed. And I think you're still going to be having to do that, right? Still test, still go through the process. What the technology is doing is actually getting you to potentially use less resource to do the investigation, and less time to get to a point whether you think, hey, there's value, hey, there's no value, let's move on to something different. And I think that's going to be the thing. So it's not a silver bullet, right? We kind of think sometimes technology is going to be the silver bullet that will change the world. Sometimes it just makes things faster, so we know, hey, there's no value in this, let's move on.
Exactly. Great. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And how about when it gets to the stage of productionizing initiatives? Are there any particular challenges when it comes to graph databases or graph type applications that are different than normal?
Yeah, look, I think people have to think a little bit differently when they're using the graph database, because all of a sudden now, instead of just double clicking on something and drilling down a level, you can actually now drill down by the relationship. And so you have to think more a little bit about when I explode this concept or this entity to the next level down. In the old BI world, we used to structure that. So I drill down from country to state to city to region to office. It was pretty well hierarchical. Here, it's not so much hierarchical. It's actually like the links on a network. Like that background that you have there is actually really appropriate, right? Because all these little nodes connecting to all these other nodes. So you can actually start thinking about, okay, so I'm not just doing a logical, structured drill down that someone has allocated for me. I can now step through this data based on the relationships. So there is a little bit of different kind of training that you have to give your end users to get used to thinking a little bit differently from that perspective, because now the whole thing opens up a lot wider than just, I'm going to follow whatever the designer for this dashboard has given me. Yeah. I've now got a lot of options to go because I'm actually using relationships. So that's one thing. But again, like any tech, you've got to go through that change management philosophy where people get trained up, they're expecting it, especially the newer and the more that you break the norm, the more resistance you get, right? So you've still got to deal with that. That's never going to go away, regardless of what new tech you're introducing. So I think we think the silver bullet, I've got great tech, it'll be great. And people out there thinking, nope, not going to use it because, you know what, I don't understand it. I don't like this new shit. Give me something that I understand and old stuff. And we've got to be conscious of, we've got to lead them by the hand and take them on the path, right? So some stuff stays old, some stuff is new, but combination is always going to be there, right?
Awesome, mate. I love the pragmatism. That's super valuable, super helpful. Thank you for that. So I wanted to see if we could change tack a little bit and go into a related topic, which is a related topic in the space in our industry, which is coming around innovation and a skills shortage, where in our country and in our industry, we are obviously striving for greater and greater innovation. We want to see more of these applications out there in the market, and we're also having to wrestle with a skills shortage and talent shortage. So I wanted to get your thoughts and perspectives on those challenges, how they combine, and get your thoughts.
Yeah, look, I think we're MIP is the kind of company that for 30 years has been able to tap into some good talent, and we tended to use very experienced people in the data warehousing and analytics space. And we still continue to do that, right? So we're trying to find people. It's tough at the moment. It really is tough to get good people and people with good experience. And what we did, we looked around, we thought, you know what, there's a lot of people out there that actually have good analytic talents, but they're not certified, they're not educated with the right initials from a bloody university that says here's the right initials to be an analyst and all those good things. Yet they're really, really good with logic, they're good with thinking through different angles and being an analyst. That's what primarily, you have to have this natural curiosity to say why and how, and are these related, and why are they related, and how does that look? And so we actually went to market, and the logo behind me on this side, the Data School, is actually, while it sounds like a school, it's actually a job that we offer for people that don't have the right qualifications but have a passion for data. And so for the last 3 years, we've been going out to market, and we take 8 or 9 people, depending on how many we find. We actually advertise on Seek and in LinkedIn. We say, hey, look, if you've got a passion for data, apply. And the really cool thing is it's not a standard application process. We don't look at CVs. We don't look at initials after their name. We don't look at experience even. What we say is download a copy of Tableau, which you can get for free. Mm-hmm. Pick some data that you're really, really passionate about. So some people, we've seen everything from sports data, climate change data. Of course, we had shitloads of COVID stuff when COVID was around, right? We got bored with that pretty quickly. So no COVID data. If anyone's thinking about no COVID data. But we did see other stuff, health, World Health Organization stuff. We got census, people pulled apart the census. Even things like, suicides and deaths in third world countries. Wow. The people with real passion for those kind of topics. And they would then create their visualization, and that becomes their application. And so we take that, and then we say, okay, now you've got some real talent here, because you've taught yourself Tableau. You've now got to a point where we can see this story forming in this visualization. What we want to do then, we test them. We say, hey, can you work with different data? So we give them another data set that's completely unrelated, and we see if they can make that transition. Do they bring that analytic skill from their passionate topic across to something that's completely irrelevant to them? And that's how they kind of get through. So we go through that process and find these people, and it's just an amazing, amazing pipeline of talent that we've unearthed. We've got people with PhDs in zoology. I've got psychology students, psychiatry students. I've got medical students. I've got engineers, lots and lots of engineers, lots and lots of ex-teachers. They don't want to be in the classroom anymore, and they can earn a lot more money as an analyst, as a data scientist. And so we've got, I think there's now 150 through the system in Australia. There's about 120 still in, 30 in the alumni. Globally, there's close to 500 people. The Data School is started in London, opened up in Hamburg and New York recently. So it's got a connection around the world. So our alumni here are starting to ask, hey, can we get to New York and work as part of the Data School? And we're starting to provide those books into a global talent pool, right? So it's really cool. And the customers that we have here love the Data Schools. They come out because they're certified in Tableau, certified in Alteryx, and we teach them the soft skills as well. So every week they get up on their feet like this and they present, because we have to make sure that they can tell the story using the data. It's not just about here's an exciting pie chart or here's an exciting line. It's not about that. It's about the story and the insight. And so we do that, and we have clients coming in all the time giving us their data, and we do work with real-world data even as part of the training part of the course. So it's really, really powerful concept, and it is addressing a little bit the shortage. We've had people now joining companies like Aldi, Westpac, Woolworths, CBA, wow. Some of the universities, some of the facilities management companies out there. So they're all kind of getting out into the market and starting to make a difference. Well, I hope they make a difference in a positive way, right?
Wow, that's incredible. And so they apply with their Tableau dashboard, and then they're essentially working as a consultant, as part of MIP. Yeah. For how long, sorry?
So the program is 28 months. So we give them some really intensive training up front. Some people kind of get very close to breaking point. I get the phone calls, oh, PK, this is too hard. And we coach them through that. But the first 4 months is really intensive. Then the rest of that process is we actually use these consultants to fill the gaps in our client site. So the clients know that they're data schoolers. And so they say, okay, there's the kind of work they can do. And it's amazing. Some of them come back to us and say, hey, look, they're a little bit better than our guys who've been using the products for a few years, and they're showing them up. So I think we're doing a great job in the training and in the coaching and getting them ready for their new careers as consultants. So lots of career change as well. I thought initially I'd just have a room full of uni students that have just finished data courses, and I unfairly call them the kids in the school, but they're not. so I've got a lot of career changes that have gone through that process. And like I said, I think there's about half a dozen PhDs, not candidate PhDs who are coming in, and some of because they've done a lot of data science work themselves, the application of data, strong data principles to what they've got in their data science knowledge really blends together well, and we've made some big differences in the projects that we've been running.
Oh, mate, that is incredible. Yeah, imagine that. Imagine wanting to get into analytics, learning a bit of Tableau yourself, then getting into a program where you're trained and then paid to learn and paid to do customer projects and consult. Mate, that's amazing. I wish that was around when I started.
Yeah, me too, right? Like around back when I started, it would have been amazing. And you make a good point there. We're actually paying them. Some of the consultants come in, sit in the first day, and you can see they're kind of like sitting back and being a bit defensive, going, this is a scam, right? At some point, someone's going to ask me for some money.
Right,
And because every other course in the world, everywhere where you get trained, you've got to give up some money, right? Whereas we're saying, no, we'll pay you from day one. And hey, we just want you to commit to us for the whole program. And like I said, we've already got 30 people in the alumni, or 35 now in the alumni in Australia alone. And there's 126 or 27 people now in the program who are actually running the program, working with our clients, solving big problems. And they're all getting excited by this graph technology because they come into some of the meetings that we run here with our friends from Neo, and they're all looking at, how do we get into this stuff, PK? How do we do this, right? So we're going to be filtering some of that into the course.
That's incredible. That is that is so good. And tell me, how and why or when did you guys decide to bring Data School over to start this? How did that point come about?
Well, it was exactly like you said. It was the finding the right talent. 3.5, 4 years ago, there wasn't a huge critical shortage like we have now. Right, today is a very different world. 3.5 years ago, MIP was looking for really good Alteryx people because we were we were actually the representative for Alteryx in the country, and we're looking for really good Tableau people. And I could find a handful of good Alteryx people, handful of good Tableau people, but very few of them had the skills of being able to, and I'm going to say munging data. I know our friends at Alteryx say it's wrangling PK, it's blending PK, but I like the word munging. So you munge the data using Alteryx, and then you visualize it using Tableau. And there was no people that actually had really good skills in both. And we thought, when we looked around the world, and our friends in the UK, the information lab had this concept running, they were a few cohorts in, we thought, hey, there's something to this, right? So we talked to those guys and we bought the concept here, and we franchised the Australian operation. So already we've got a school in Sydney, a school in Melbourne. We're thinking, we're planning now for a second school and in Sydney and another one in Brisbane, and potentially through the region, because the demand is so strong. Like even through COVID, when a lot of people were saying, oh, we're shutting down, we're slowing down, our clients actually were looking for more consultants because, of course, they were getting into the unknown. So the only way that you can deal with that is to have the data to support what's happening. And they needed it almost in real time, not this, oh, it's okay, we can wait 3 months for someone to come up with a dashboard. None of that stuff was working for people. So we didn't have a bench at all. Usually a lot of our friends in the consulting world would say, oh, we've got all these people on the bench, we don't know what to do with them. Yeah. We were saying, oh, we have 0 on the bench and we could use another 15, 20 consultants all the way through the COVID break. So, and it's continued all the way through now. So we've shown the value. And again, we were looking for that talent set that combined data knowledge, great visualization skills and storytelling. And so when we couldn't find that, we thought, let's build our own, right? A little bit like the Frankenstein thing. We'll go out, find the right talent in the market, bring them in, train them up the best way we can. And so, look, these data schoolers are certified in Alteryx, certified in Tableau, so that there's independent verification of their knowledge. And we teach them all about things like data governance, project leadership, time management. So we give them all the soft skills that they need to be a great analyst. So they come out there and they're changing the world. They're actually making some big strides in not just in Australia, of course, around the world with the skills that they bring to our clients.
Mate, I love it so much, and from start to end, and I love the innovative thinking around skills shortage, because like people might think, oh, we need more people with these capabilities, so we will get closer to organizations who train, but you guys went the other way and created this program where people get paid to learn and put their talent, their curiosity to good use, and they get taught the skills and they get the experience that they need.
Yeah, and look, I think the tertiary system still is working pretty well. I think the challenge for us was the time frame, right? Waiting 3, 4, 5 years for someone to complete their bachelor, some that are doing honours, then masters. That kind of pipeline in this kind of marketplace just didn't work for us, right? So we just wanted that immediacy. And the only way we could do that was control it ourselves. So that's why we jumped into creating the data school Down Under, which is, for anyone who's watching this and is kind of thinking, I'm learning about analytics, I really want to get a job, but I don't have the qualifications, but I don't have the experience, but I don't. Come to us. To us. We'll show you a different way to get into the world of analytics.
I love it. So where could people find out more information? Where should they go?
Okay, it's www.thedataschool.com.au, or just give us a call and we'll give you a bit of a clue as to how to get in. The other thing is the people that actually teach the data schoolers, the subjects, are our consultants. So we physically pull them off site. So awesome. The guy that was in the morning was doing a governance strategy for one of our biggest clients takes an afternoon and comes into the data school and says, hey, what I just did there, and here's how you do governance. And so it's not academic, it's actually real world and pragmatic and practical. And I think that makes a difference as well, because you're dealing with people that are in the market, solving problems and knowing what the market's looking for. So we bring real world consultants, real world problems into the room, and it makes such a difference to the learning and again, that speed to being efficient and effective as a consultant.
Right, that's amazing. And for people that want to learn more about MIP and some of the graph database work that you guys have been doing, where can they find out more information?
So call us at MIP or come to our website at www.mip.com.au. Am I selling it well? Is that a good sales pitch, man?
Excellent. And the last thing I'll say is you're coming to Advancing AI Sydney 30th of August. So for anyone who's enjoyed this conversation, come and see PK as part of our next conference. So Advancing AI in Sydney, August 30th. And I hope to see you all there. PK, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your perspectives, and your innovative thinking and approach to problem solving. It's been wonderful and refreshing. And thank you so much for all the work that you do.
Yes, Felipe, not a problem. I'm just going to add to at the AI Summit, we'll actually have demonstrations. So we'll on the main stage, I think we get a bit of a time to talk at the folks. So we'll try and weave in something that will show you what it looks like. So if you can't wait till then, get in touch with us. We'll do a demo beforehand. But if you're going to be at the show, come up to the booth or watch the session. We will have live software there you can play around with, or you can ask as many questions as you like. Look, it's been a pleasure. I do get excited talking about this new tech. I get really, really passionate about talking about our data school initiative, because I think we're doing such a great thing for people's lives. We're changing people's lives, and our clients are seeing that as well, and they're kind of supporting that. So if there's anyone out there that is keen on analytics, like I said, talk to us, and let's see if we can get you on that first journey. And for the rest of you who are interested in graph, come to the show or give us a call. More than happy to get you into more and more detail about this, because we've done this for a little while now, and we're super excited by it.
Mate, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for that. That was excellent. Great to talk to you, mate, as always. Take care.
Take care, you too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope that you got a lot out of this discussion. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find out about the challenges that leaders have in the analytics and AI space. And that's what we're trying to share in Data Futurology. So please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Thank you so much.